On tonight's summary of the Israel-Hamas War, day 154, al-Qassam Brigade stated that hostages are also suffering from hunger conditions in the Gaza Strip, adding that the movement will not compromise on a complete ceasefire as part of any hostage deal. 7 IDF soldiers injured in the West Bank after an explosive device was detonated in their vicinity. More details were released today about the pier that the U.S. is intending to develop in northern parts of the Gaza Strip, which will reportedly be guarded and secured by the IDF. The Islamic Resistance in Iraq, which is an Iranian-backed militia, claimed a drone attack today against an IDF outpost in the northern parts of Israel. This is the second day in a row that this militia has claimed drone attacks against the IDF. In Israel, concerns were raised about the pier in Gaza, stating that it will not be controlled by Israel or Egypt, fearing the precedent of losing control over what comes into the Gaza Strip. Hello everyone. I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine. Here to bring you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War. It's currently the evening of March 8th, 2024 in the United States, the morning of March 9th, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, al-Qassam Brigade spokesperson Abu Obaida stated today that hunger in the Gaza Strip is making its way to the hostages as well, and some of them are suffering from illnesses due to malnutrition. He added that the family members of hostages in Israel should know that the Israeli government is playing with their lives and insisting on returning the hostages only in coffins. Regarding the hostage negotiations, Abu Obaida stated that Hamas's top priority remains an Israeli commitment to a ceasefire and IDF withdrawal, adding that there will be no compromise about this. He closed the statement by calling upon Palestinians in the West Bank, Jerusalem, and within Israel to all come to al-Aqsa Mosque during the month of Ramadan. This relates to fears that have been raised in the Israeli security establishment and by negotiators that Hamas hopes to use the month of Ramadan in order to, quote-unquote, unite the different fronts against Israel to incite an uprising of Palestinians both in the West Bank and possibly within Israel itself. Moving on to the Gaza Strip, there were no rockets or mortars fired from the Gaza Strip into Israel in the last 24 hours. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, the al-Qassam Brigades reported the drone attack against the IDF, stating that a drone managed to drop 2 anti-personnel mines in an IDF headquarters east of Beit Hanun. Now, it's important to note that the al-Qassam Brigades do not claim a lot of drone attacks. This has not been a tactic that was used by Hamas largely throughout the war. It has been reported in the last several weeks that different Hamas units have managed to intercept and capture IDF drones, and it is possible that these are the drones that then have been converted and reused by al-Qassam now in order to attack IDF units. In addition, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade reported an attack against an IDF gathering area near the Erez crossing. Also in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, bombings were reported in the Tufah region and the eastern parts of Gaza City. In the central parts of the Gaza Strip, there's ongoing fighting reported, although like in the last several days, there's no specific reports about where the fighting is. Likely this is in the areas, the outskirts of the al-Nusayrat refugee camp or al-Bureid refugee camp. Other reports also noted bombings in the area, specifically noting attacks in the areas of Deir al-Balah. In the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, the bulk of the fighting remains in Han Yunis. The IDF is continuing expanding its operation into Hamid City and the Al-Qarara region. Several tunnel entrances were reportedly uncovered today, and the IDF reported 15 Hamas operatives were killed. Rocket launching sites in the area that were primed to launch were also found and destroyed. Al-Qassam reported an ambush against IDF soldiers in an apartment in Hamid City that occurred yesterday, stating that 6 IDF soldiers were killed. It's important to note this is unconfirmed by the IDF. Yesterday there was a report of several IDF soldiers that were badly injured in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, so likely this relates to that report. However, the IDF has not reported that any were killed. In Rafah, the Shihab News Network, which is a Hamas affiliate, reported a series of IDF bombings in the areas of Rafah as well as in the areas of Han Yunis. However, again, it was not reported what specifically was targeted in these cities. Other news related to the Gaza Strip. The IDF published its report about the 8-truck incident that occurred last week, stating that, according to its analysis, some 12,000 Palestinians tried to raid the 8 trucks along the way, including using cars to block the way of the convoy in order to slow the trucks down. The IDF stated that during the raid, Palestinians approached IDF forces and warning shots were fired by the forces and the tanks as well, and that direct fire was only used as Palestinians continued to approach the forces, stating that most of the fatalities occurred as a result of being hit by the 8 trucks and being trampled by the different Palestinian raiders. Other news, CNN reported today that a major road being built east to west in the Gaza Strip by the IDF, known as the Netzarim or Nusayrat corridor, which effectively divides the north of the Gaza Strip from the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, has been completed and now stretches from the Israeli border on the east all the way to the Mediterranean Sea on the west. CNN quoted the IDF sources stating that the road allows for passage of forces and logistical equipment in the area. Israel's diaspora minister, Amichai Shikli, is also quoted in the CNN report as stating that the road will be used in order to launch raids both north and south in the Strip for at least a year. According to the report, the road has 3 lanes, one for the passage of heavy tanks and armored vehicles, another for light vehicles, and a third for faster movement along this corridor that goes east to west. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldiers are reported killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, leaving the total number of IDF soldiers killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began on 247. The IDF is reporting that 1,468 IDF soldiers have been injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began. It's important to note that these numbers are somewhat confused lately. Yesterday it was reported the number was actually higher. It is possible that this is related to confusion regarding where IDF soldiers are actually injured. Logistically, these numbers are reported only of soldiers that are injured in the Gaza Strip, and it is possible these are soldiers that were injured by mortar fire or something like that along the border. However, I'm reporting the official numbers. The official numbers as of today are 1,468. Regarding the Palestinian side, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 78 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 30,878. 72,402 Palestinians reported injured in the Gaza Strip since the war began. In addition, in honor of International Women's Day, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported today that some 8,100 women have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Noteworthy, this is somewhat less than the numbers that were reported by the UN several days ago, stated that over 9,000 women have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Usually these numbers are more coordinated. However, if we're reporting the most latest and updated numbers, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting 8,100 women were killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Moving on to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported today that 3 more children have died from malnutrition and dehydration in the al-Shifa hospital in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, bringing the total number of Palestinians that have died from these conditions to 23. Other news, more details were published today about the pier that the United States is planning to build in the Gaza Strip. Today it was reported that this is going to be something like a floating dock, similar to what the United States constructed in an exercise in South Korea in 2017, shown in the pictures here. Such piers are known as Joint Logistics Over the Shore, or JLOTS. I'm only reporting that because some people may see that in reports as they start to come out as this pier is built. In addition, it was reported that the pier is going to be built in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. It will be secured by IDF forces on the ground. Reportedly, some 1,000 U.S. troops are going to be part of this operation, but they are not supposed to set foot in the Gaza Strip. And that the U.S. hopes that they will be able to provide up to 2 million hot meals to the Gaza Strip per day. Estimates are that it's going to take between 30 and 60 days until this pier is up and running. Reportedly, alongside the United Arab Emirates is going to be funding the aid, and the United States, other countries involved include Cyprus, the United Kingdom, Germany, Greece, and Italy. Again, it has not been reported what is going to be Israel's role in this. Israel has stated that any aid coming into the Gaza Strip is going to be inspected by Israel, and the IDF is reportedly going to secure and provide the overall security around this pier. However, how much involvement is going to have in coordinating the logistics of the aid has not been reported. Amidst this, the UK Foreign Minister David Cameron stated today that establishing the pier will take time, and that Israel must open the Ashdod port for humanitarian aid entrance until this is established. The statement is somewhat confusing. The Ashdod port is within Israel. Aid can theoretically come into the Ashdod port. The problem is still transporting the aid by truck convoys into the Gaza Strip, so it is unclear what exactly David Cameron is calling for. Other news related to the humanitarian situation. Canada announced today that it is going to restore its funding to UNRWA after it was suspended on January 26. However, there was no report made as to when this funding is actually going to be restored. Other news, the U.S. carried out another round of paradropping aid in the Gaza Strip today. This is the 4th time the U.S. has carried out such missions. In addition, during a paradropping mission in Gaza City, one of the parachutes of the aid containers failed to open. The resulting crash reportedly killed 5 Palestinians on the ground. The Pentagon clarified this was not done in a U.S. paradrop. Both the U.S. and Egypt were carrying out paradroppings in these areas. Regardless of who was responsible, 5 Palestinians were killed as a result of this accident. Moving on to the West Bank, there was a Palestinian attack that occurred near the Silat ad-Dahar village. Palestinians detonated an explosive charge near IDF soldiers in the area, injuring 7 of them to different degrees. Reportedly, there's also a shooting attack that occurred during this attack. The IDF activity in the region is continuing in the hunt for the attackers, as the attackers did manage to flee the area. Regarding IDF activity, Muhammad Shalbi, who is a Palestinian Islamic Jihad operative in charge of much of the group's activity in the northern parts of the West Bank, was killed today in an IDF operation in the Silat al-Haritha village. No information was given regarding the operation itself, other than that there was a ground operation carried out by the Duvdevan and Magav units, which means it was not a targeted assassination from the sky. According to some reports on the ground, the IDF entered the area and laid siege to the house in which Muhammad Shalbi was hiding out, and a gun battle ensued as the IDF tried to arrest him, and he was killed in this gun battle. However, again, this is not an official report. These were reports from eyewitnesses on the ground. Other news, responding to Israel's approval of thousands of housing units in the West Bank settlements in the last several days, Volker Turk, who is the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, stated today that West Bank settlements are a war crime and that they effectively cancel the ability to create a Palestinian state. He added that settler violence against Palestinians has reached alarming heights since the war began. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon. There were continuous rockets and missiles sent from Lebanon targeting northern parts of Israel today. However, after the escalations the last several days, today was relatively calmer, more the scale of rockets and IDF retaliations that have been prior to these latest escalations in the last several weeks. Several barrages of rockets were sent towards the Upper Galilee, including the areas of Dishon, Ramon Naftali, and Malachia. Rockets were also targeted the areas of Shlomi and Batzat in the Western Galilee, and other rockets were sent towards Shtula, Avivim, and Netuah. Hezbollah also claims 6 different border incidents in the last 24 hours. These usually involved firing at IDF outposts, either anti-tank missiles or just shooting attacks. Regarding IDF activity, IDF warplanes reportedly attacked a Hezbollah military position and launching site in the Ita Ash'ab area. Many secondary explosions were noted after the attack, indicating a lot of weapon storages in the area. Other attacks also targeted the Hezbollah command center in the El Mansouri region and another command center in Bin Jbel. Prior to this, other attacks were reported by warplanes targeting Hezbollah structures in the Thagusa area as well as Majd al-Zun, where secondary explosions were also seen in the area. Al-Miyan reported IDF attacks were also carried out in the areas of Alavona, Meruhin, and Ramia. These are areas that are closer to the border, so it is possible these were IDF artillery fires that are responding to Hezbollah attacks. That is the usual pattern. Hezbollah launches rockets and then IDF carries out artillery fire towards the launching sites, which is separate than the attacks that the IDF carries out with warplanes. Hezbollah also announced the death of 3 more operatives in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Hezbollah operatives killed since the war began to 238. According to the IDF, the number of Hezbollah operatives that have been killed since the war began is much higher. Moving on to the regional developments, the Islamic resistance in Iraq claimed another drone attack against Israel, saying that drones attacked an IDF intelligence base in the northern parts of the Golan Heights. No confirmation was given, and this was not reported by the IDF or any other news sites or eyewitnesses in Israel. It's the second day in a row that these militias are claiming attacks by drones against different IDF outposts or IDF soldiers in the northern parts of Israel. It's not clear if these attacks are actually being carried out but are not being reported by the IDF. Alternatively, it is also possible that these militias are reporting these attacks as part of their signaling that they are going to be upping the ante, so to speak, towards the month of Ramadan and carrying out more attacks, as Hamas has stated will happen, and that this is their way of saying we are adhering to Hamas's call without actually carrying out the attacks or failing to actually succeed in the attacks. However, that they are reporting this in order to signal that they are still part of these regional attacks against Israel. Other regional news. UKMTO reported that a ship sailing south of the port of Aden reported 2 explosions in its vicinity. No damage was reported to the ship or the crew, and it continued sailing along its course. Prior to this, the United States announced that it had carried out several attacks against 4 Houthi nautical missiles and 1 drone. 3 drones were also reportedly intercepted in the Gulf of Aden after they posed a threat to U.S. ships. Moving on to the political and general trends of the last 24 hours, there are escalating protests in Israel of family members of hostages and their supporters, calling upon the government to reach a hostage deal. Protesters today blocked the main highway number 1 between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, burning tires and some of them sitting in cages along the roads. According to some reports, their speeches and the protest chastised Netanyahu, repeatedly stating there is no such thing as complete victory without returning the hostages. Other political news. The UN Security Council is going to hold a special session on Monday to discuss the UN report on sexual violence that occurred during the October 7th attack. Israel had applied a lot of pressure on different countries to convene the council after criticizing the UN Secretary General for not doing this himself. Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz is reportedly going to join the session alongside the family members of hostages and family members of victims of the October 7th attack. Other news, a recording was published today from President Biden's State of the Union speech, showing him talking to some senators after the speech. At one point he turns to his conversation partner and says that he told Netanyahu that they are going to have at some point a come-to-Jesus conversation. Biden was asked about this today, and a reporter stated, "Does this show your frustration with Netanyahu, and does Netanyahu have to do more about the humanitarian situation in Gaza?" President Biden simply answered, "Yes, he does." Other news, in the British newspapers Daily Mirror and Telegraph, pictures were published from an Instagram page called Hamas Hunting Club, showing Palestinian detainees sitting handcuffed and blindfolded. The report added that IDF soldiers who took the pictures of themselves wearing such shirts include U.S. citizens that serve in the IDF. The IDF did not deny these pictures and stated that such behavior is not in line with the military's values and that the IDF condemns them. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, there was an interesting report today from Israel's cabinet meeting regarding the U.S. plan for a pier in the Gaza Strip and developing a maritime corridor to Cyprus. On the one hand, there was large support for this plan, recognizing that the country does need to do something to relieve the pressure that has built up regarding the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. At the same time, several cabinet members raised concerns about precedent, as this is going to be the first time since 1948 that a port in Gaza is not going to be under either Egyptian or Israeli control. Some of them stated that this undermines the Israeli demands to be in complete security control of all entrances and exits with regard to the Gaza Strip, raising the possibility that this may even lead to future trade agreements between Palestinian bodies and the EU, since Cyprus is an EU member, and if this corridor is developed and Israel does not have authority to actually stop what's happening, it may have to do so by force, but if not, then Israel is going to quote-unquote lose its demand to say that it is going to be the one that controls what is allowed in and out of Gaza, which is part of Prime Minister Netanyahu's plan for what is going to be the future of the Gaza Strip. If you find these reports informative, please do remember to give them a like, subscribe if you want to know when the reports come out, do turn on notifications. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.